Chapter 11. Permission. Once enough arquebus were made, Duke Vardon summoned several of the top non-aura users amongst his soldiers. Despite not having any aura, they had survived numerous battles in the north. Their experience was unmatched among the non-aura users. They had proven their loyalty to the dukedom numerous times. Even Sir the Los had vouched for them. The group of people didn't know why they were called, but they did not question the order given by Iron Duke himself. They waited inside a heavily guarded area, as if a priceless treasure were hidden within. The place they were in now was like a large training ground with several training dummies seen in the distance. It was a confusing setup. If this was just a training ground, why were the dummies placed so far away? At this distance, the only thing that could hit those training dummies was a third circle spell, which, of course, none of them could do. The group of soldiers was looking around in confusion while talking to each other, wondering why they were called to such a place. In the midst of their discussion, the Iron Duke arrived. The moment the Iron Duke appeared, the entire area fell silent as the soldiers stood at attention. Behind the Iron Duke were two other people. One was an old man and someone all of them knew, the former Knight Vaughn. The third figure was a well-built youth they didn't recognize, but his presence beside the Iron Duke spoke volumes about his importance. That person was, of course, Lucien Thornheart. "My soldiers, I have called upon you for an important task." The Iron Duke's voice cut clean through the open courtyard like a blade through fresh snow. "What you are about to see is something that will change the way we deal with the monster waves. This is something that will save many soldiers that we lose every time either a monster wave comes or one of the barbarian tribes which come to do battle. This is the weapon that will protect our beloved kingdom from all threats. This is the future." As his father spoke, Lucien silently loaded the arquebus, lit the match cord, and took aim. The thundering roar of the shot stunned the gathered soldiers. Some instinctively reached for their swords, others flinched as the echo rolled across the training field, but none spoke. The training dummy's head had been partially obliterated. The dull glow of the match cord, the iron smell of powder, it was like nothing the seasoned veterans had ever seen. One of the older soldiers, a grizzled man with a scar running down his cheek, blinked in disbelief. "Was that magic?" "My soldiers," the Iron Duke spoke once more, his voice cold and firm. "What you just witnessed was not a spell. It was not aura. That was a tool similar to a crossbow, but far deadlier." He gestured to Lucien, who stepped forward and held the arquebus upright, the barrel still faintly warm. "This," Vardon continued, "is an arquebus, a weapon anyone can wield, a weapon that will give even those without aura or mana the power to slay enemies from afar. This young man is my son, Lucien. He and Vaughn will instruct you in its use." He looked at each soldier in turn, his gaze sharp as a whetted blade. "Train hard, master this weapon. With it, we will defend Norvigard from any threat." The soldiers pounded their right hands to their chests in salute. Vardon returned the gesture. "For Norvigard, for Stelhart." Vaughn, ever the pragmatic one, wasted no time. He clapped his hands and barked, "Enough standing around. Your soldiers, not wide-eyed recruits. Fall in. 2 rows. The men swiftly formed up. The older ones moved with the efficiency of countless drills. The younger ones followed their lead, stiff-backed and alert. Vaughn nodded to Lucien, who stood beside a crate of supplies. "We start with the basics. Listen to him. Disrespect this weapon, and it will kill you." Once Vaughn and Lucien started, Vardon left. The soldiers learned the fundamentals: loading, firing, and reloading. Once that was covered, Lucien stepped back and left the rest to Vaughn. Lucien, who was in his room, was looking at the notes he had written the day he remembered his past life's memories. "Even with Sir Thalos's help, my growth has slowed. I've strengthened the North's army, given them arquebus, secured Duskwell as an ally, but I'm still not strong enough. I need to get stronger before the next monster wave or before the territorial wars. Without levels, how am I supposed to unlock the rest of the gun mage's skills?" Lucien once again asked a question that no one could answer. He set the notes down and leaned back in his chair, letting out a quiet sigh. "I already trained hard enough that this once lanky body has now become incredibly sturdy for someone my age, but I still could not gain aura. There's a possibility that training isn't enough. I need to have a real battle." Lucien stood up from his chair and looked outside his window. The snow wasn't as heavy as usual, and the roads were clearer. "This might be a good time to go out on an adventure. Now that I think about it, I haven't left this place ever." All of his memories were here. The only thing he ever did was swing his sword, trying so hard to gain recognition. Lussen then unconsciously looked at his hands. There were many scars, bruises, and calluses on his hands. This wasn't the hand of a 12-year-old kid. Before and after he regained his past life memories, the child called Lussen Thornheart had never done anything another would call fun. Lussen, whose thoughts were starting to wander, shook his head. There are several items nearby that could increase my strength. Maybe when I go out, I'll try to find those things. Still, first things first, I got to get permission. If possible, Lussen wanted to simply go out by himself, but of course, he would be blocked by the soldier, and even if he tried to sneak out with his level of skill, he would be spotted immediately. Once he made up his mind, Lussen went to meet his father. As he was now facing his father, he once again felt his overwhelming presence. Lussen snapped his heels together and placed his right hand over his chest in salute. "Requesting permission to speak, sir." Vardon's brow twitched slightly, but he gave a curt nod. "I wish to leave the estate and travel outside the northern fortress for a period of time to conduct independent field training and resource gathering," Lussen said, his tone firm and precise. "My objective is to gain real battle experience." Vardon set his pen down. "You wish to leave alone?" "Yes, sir." "You are 12. "Yes, sir." "You are not an aura user." "Not yet, sir." Vardon leaned back slightly in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "It seems that even though he seems mature, he is a 12-year-old. State your reasoning, and do not waste my time." Lussen's hand stayed firmly against his chest as he responded. "Sir, I believe the training regimen I've been following under Sir Thalos has yielded diminishing returns. Despite consistent physical conditioning and mana exercises, I have hit a plateau. The body has become strong, but the mind requires combat experience. The next stage of growth, as seen in the past nights, only occurs under real pressure. Aura is often awakened in moments of life and death trial." The way Lussen answered was nothing like how a 12-year-old would speak, but here in the north, in the household of the Thornheart, this was not that abnormal. "Your life is valuable to this house," Vardon replied, unmoved. "If you die, it will be by my command, not foolishness. That would be normal if you sent one of your inexperienced soldiers out, but I'm a Thornheart. The children of the Thornheart need to uphold a certain standard. The first Duke of Stelhart of Norvigard, the blade of the king, Duke Edric Thornheart. At a similar age of 12, he was in a mercenary camp, going from one battlefield to another." Lussen's voice was becoming firmer as he spoke. "Duke Richard Thornheart, at the age of 12, slayed a nest of goblins barehanded. Elizabeth Thornheart, at the age of 12, had defeated a wounded ogre with her sword. Duke Vardon joined his first monster wave defense at the age of 9. A Thornheart isn't one born from talent alone. A Thornheart is forged through battle." Vardon's gaze didn't leave Lussen's for quite some time. Then he spoke slowly. "You are right. We are not nobles of silk and song. We are born in frost and forged by steel. Fine, if you wish to leave, then I shall allow it." Vardon's fingers drummed once against his desk. "You will face more than beasts out there. Not all monsters walk on 4 legs. Then I will face them as a Thornheart without fear and with steel." Vardon's stony face had his lip curved upward a little. "How long do you think your little expedition will last?" 2 months, it would take around 2 months, Lussen answered without hesitation. "Fine, I shall give you 2 months. When will you leave?" "I'll leave in a week. I need to prepare first." "Very well. Make your preparations. Is there anything else that you want?" "No, sir." "Then you may leave." Lussen gave a knight's salute and turned to leave. Just before stepping out, he murmured, barely audible even to himself, "Thank you, father." Normal people wouldn't be able to hear what was said, but an aura user like Vardon, who had superhuman senses, heard what his son said. "Humph, what a troublesome son you are," Vardon replied in an empty room with a soft smile on his face. Chapter 12, Preparation. The week before his expedition, Lussen got to work. He had his skills, gun creation, bullet creation, but both relied on mana. And mana could run out. He needed something that wouldn't vanish the moment he ran dry. A real physical weapon. Something that didn't disappear just because he ran out of mana. He also needed armor, emergency supplies, rations, and probably a few mundane tools like rope and bandages. He was going outside the safety of the fortress, after all. The first thing Lussen did was go to one of the blacksmiths working on the arquebus alongside the carpenters. When he arrived at the large forge, he saw that Robert was also there. He and the blacksmiths were looking at something. "What are you doing?" "Ah, listen, perfect timing." Robert looked up with the usual alchemical sparkle in his eye. "I made a few changes to the arquebus design. Come, take a look." Lucian's eyes scanned the drawing. The replacements weren't familiar, not because they were advanced, but because they didn't exist in his old world. They were magical components native to this world. "I replaced your so-called matchlock system with a new ignition method," Robert explained. "See this? It's a striker plate mechanism. A spring-loaded wheel scrapes against shardstone. No mana needed. Just twist, aim, and fire." Shardstone. The name sounded very familiar, but Lucian could not remember where he had heard it or what it was. It's a mineral found in the bone spikes of frosthounds. It's spark-generating, incredibly durable, and it works even in rain or snow. Grey Tower researchers use it in mana-reactive triggers, but it doesn't need mana to ignite. This version, anyone can use it. Also, I increased the explosive power of the gunpowder, so now the lead balls can fly further. Robert beamed with pride. Even a farmer could pick one up and fire it reliably. Lucian blinked in surprise. This guy just casually reinvented the wheelick. I didn't know the specifics of the thing, so I did not bother trying to make it. But this guy just did it on his own. Not only that, he improved the gunpowder using things that are beyond my knowledge. Heh! You truly are a brilliant mad alchemist. I don't know if you're praising me or not, but I'm indeed brilliant, Robert smugly replied. Lucian shook his head, looking at the confident Robert, and sighed. This was a blind spot in his skill. Gun knowledge, since it was knowledge from his past life's world, and not from this magical world. This version of the arquebus, though similar to the original, was now a little bit closer to a musket. Lucian gave the updated drawing one last glance before rolling it up and handing it back. Good work, Robert. Just don't blow yourself up testing it. Robert chuckled. No promises. Lucian shrugged his shoulders, then turned towards the blacksmiths gathered nearby. I'll be traveling outside the fortress for a while. I need armor, a sword, and that newly developed arquebus. The head blacksmith, a gruff older man with burn scars and arms like tree trunks, nodded. Young master, if it's all right with you, will you use the armor we created? You already made the armor? Lucian asked, surprised. When we started getting the hang of making the arquebus, we started thinking of what kind of armor would be good for the one using it. When we imagined the armor for this, we made the young master the model. The group of blacksmiths took out a few pieces of armor and showed them to Lucian. This is the prototype armor we designed for the soldiers who are going to use the arquebus. The head blacksmith pointed to the pale, slightly glossy surface of the chest piece. Frostfang wolf's spine bone. Light as hardwood, but harder than steel when properly forged. It'll take a sword or a spear tip without cracking, and the cold won't make it brittle. He moved to the pauldrons. These curved plates? That's from a winter drake's leg scales. Tough as anything we've seen, but we thinned them down just enough to keep shoulder movement free. Ogre hide, the blacksmith said. Cured it for days, then reinforced it with layers of fang fragments from goblins. Strong enough to stop a short sword, but light enough not to have difficulty moving. And we used frost ogre hide strips for the joints. Flexes well, but holds up in snow. Doesn't get stiff. Lucian stared at the last piece of armor. And the gloves. Double-stitched hide and claw pulp. Gives a good grip. This is good. With armor and arquebus, I only need a sword. Can you make a short sword for me to use? No problem, young master. Once you're done, just give Vaughn the armor and weapons once you're done. As you wish, young master. After he was done talking with the blacksmith, Lucian decided to head out into town for the first time in this life. Even back in the game, he hasn't seen what Ironhold looked like since the fortress city had fallen before the start of the game. As Lucian was about to head out for the first time ever in this life, he saw Sir the Los training in the snow. This person trains every day without rest. The man was upside down, balanced on a single gloved index finger, his entire body as rigid and motionless as a statue. Not a single wobble. His finger touched the snow so delicately that it didn't even leave a dent. Not even a flake moved. Lucian blinked. Is he doing a fingerstand push-up on snow? No, not even that. He was holding a perfect fingerstand without sinking, because he was concentrating aura into that one fingertip with such absurd control that it created a near-weightless contact point. Sir the Los noticed Lucian and then, using a burst of the aura on his fingertip, he pushed himself upward. In the air, Sir Talos spun in midair and landed perfectly in front of Lusen. Young master, are you going to train as well? No, not today. I'm just going to visit the town. I see. Sir Talos looked slightly disappointed, but it passed. He smiled. Well, if you ever feel the urge, you know where to find me. As Sir Talos turned around and was about to go back to training, Lusen spoke. Sir Talos, why do you train like this every day? Why are you so obsessed with strengthening your body and denying using any weapon? Lusen could not help but ask the question he was always curious about. Since Sir Talos wasn't part of the main game, and he wasn't even in the lore, he did not know much about the other person. He was very interested to know more about this character, who could have been a good addition to the main game. Sir Talos, who had his back facing Lusen, did not turn around, but he responded to the question. Long ago, I learned no matter how good a sword, no matter how proficient you are in the use of aura, a sword will break. His voice then dropped a little lower. Back then, if only my body were strong enough, I would have. Sir Talos stopped speaking for a few seconds and sighed before continuing. Young master, swords, spears, and even your new toy, all of them could break, but my body, which I forged myself, will never break. Lusen did not know what to say. Sir Talos turned, and when he saw Lusen's reaction, he smiled slightly. So, young master, it's good that you have trained your body into what it is now. I hope you continue forging into something unbreakable. With a faint chuckle to ease the mood, Lusen replied. Well, I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I can do fingertip push-ups on snow, but I'll keep training. Maybe one day, my body won't break either. Lusen gave a respectful nod. Thanks, Sir Talos. I'll keep that in mind. Chapter 13, Gods and Goddesses. As Lusen stepped beyond the gates of his home, the first thing that greeted him was the cold northern wind, carrying the faint scent of smoke and pine. The sky above Ironhold was a pale silver, blanketed with low, drifting clouds that seemed to merge with the mountain peaks surrounding the fortress city. Snow dusted the rooftops, and smoke curled lazily from chimneys built to withstand far worse winters. The city hidden within the tall walls was like any other city, bustling with life. Despite the cold and the threat of the monster waves, barbarian tribes, and foreign armies, the people of Ironhold felt no fear as they all believed the mighty shield of Norvigard would protect them. Ironhold, the fortress city that was already destroyed before the game's story even began. In his past life, it had only existed in bits of backstory and scattered flashbacks, little more than a tragic memory for a few of the characters. But here it was now, a living, breathing city under the snow. This world might have inspired the creation of the game. Maybe someone back then caught a glimpse of this world in a dream and turned it into a story. Wrapped in a thick coat, Lusen stepped further into the snow-laced streets of Ironhold, his eyes quietly scanning the city. It was nothing like the cities of his old life. No high-rises nearly touching the clouds, no paved highways, or endless rush of vehicles. The streets here were uneven, built from stone and packed snow. Lanterns, not neon lights, lined the roads. Still, there were some similarities, like the scent of smoke in the air and the stench of the sewers. Lusen wasn't here just to admire the view. There were a few places he needed to see first. It was the temples of the deities in this world. As he was looking through his notes the other day, one of the things that can help him get stronger was the temples. In the game, added buffs were given depending on which god or goddess the protagonist chooses to believe in. While the in-game lore spoke of dozens of gods and goddesses, only a handful were accessible for the protagonist in the game due to the game's limited scope. After all, the protagonist never left Norvigard. In-game, there was a restriction of only believing in a single deity, but in real life, based on Lusen's knowledge, you can believe in several deities. Still, he wasn't sure if all deities would give him any blessing. In fact, since the deities here are real, maybe they'll get mad if he believes in too many, or they'll be pleased that he worships all of them. Of course, there was a possibility that he wouldn't be able to gain anything, since he wasn't the protagonist. It was also possible due to his body being a game character body, he would be able to gain those benefits. No use thinking too much about it, just have to try it out and see what happens. I know that some of the knights believe in 2 to 3 deities, and they seem to be okay. So I guess the deities here aren't that petty. Lusen sighed as he shrugged his shoulders. If it were possible to get a buff from worshipping a deity and if it could only work once, then he needed to choose the first deity he would worship wisely. In Norvigard, there are 5 main deities, each revered in different regions and among different people. The gods rarely speak, but their blessings are real, granted through belief, ritual, and fate. Among them, the one most revered in the north was, of course, Varkan. Varkan, god of war and honor. He who seeks battle. Varkan is the embodiment of martial might and glorious struggle. His name is often invoked by soldiers and warriors before battle. Buff, plus 10% damage when fighting multiple enemies. Skill, battle focus, when health is low, it slightly reduces damage taken and increases all stats for a few seconds. Nerith, goddess of the land and forests. She who grows all things. Nerith is worshipped by farmers, herbalists, and rangers. Her blessings are gentle but vital. Buff, increases resistance to poison and disease. Skill, friend of the forest, wild animals will not attack unless provoked. The Lara, goddess of justice and judgment. She who sees all evil. The Lara is the impartial eye that sees into men's souls. Her followers uphold the law and seek truth. Buff, bonus damage against those branded as evil. The more guilt the enemy carries, the greater the damage. Skill, oathbound, strong resistance to charm, illusion, and mind-altering magic. Calderos, god of the forge and flames. He who guides the flame of creation. Calderos is the patron of blacksmiths and crafters. His flame not only destroys, it forges. Buff, increases the effectiveness of any weapon or armor created by another believer. Skill, heat-tempered, slightly increases weapon durability and reduces the chance of equipment breaking in battle. Velmyra, goddess of the night and death. She who waits for the last light. Velmyra is not feared but revered. She governs endings, the stillness of night, and the peace that follows death. Assassins, undertakers, and seers often whisper her name. Buff, increased resistance to fear and darkness-based effects. Skill, last embrace, when killing an enemy, it slightly restores stamina and mana. I tried each of them and the playstyle changes a little depending on which deity the protagonist worships, but overall, each one of them gave great buffs and skills. Still, if I could only choose one, which one would be good for me? OSH*T. I was thinking about from the point of view of this game's protagonist, but I'm not him. If it's my current body, then either Varkan or Velmyra are good choices. Both give skills that help in a pinch. While Lussen was thinking which temple he should go to, in his peripheral vision, he saw a boy a little younger than him, around 7 to 8 years old, coming out of the alleyway, running towards him. The kid bumped into Lussen, and it was at that moment that Lussen, with his enhanced senses, saw the kid's hand quickly reaching out for his coin pouch. What a cliché. Lussen's hand shot out as he felt the small fingers brush against his coin pouch. In one swift motion, he caught the boy's wrist. Hey, let me go! The kid struggled to get away from Lussen but failed. Lussen looked at the kid and noticed he was not wearing much, which was bad here in the north. The boy's hand was freezing to the touch. Up close, Lussen could see the dirt smudged on his cheeks, the thinness in his arms. He wasn't dangerous, just desperate. Hey, you're freezing. Where are your parents? Lussen asked, glancing around as if expecting someone to appear. Do you live around here? When the boy stayed silent, Lussen sighed. If I let you go now, the guards might catch you later. They won't ask questions like I did. Lussen spoke while loosening his grip just enough to suggest he could tighten it again at any time. He wasn't planning to turn the kid in, but fear was a better deterrent than kindness sometimes. That got the boy's attention. Wait. Don't call the guards, please, he cried. Lussen tilted his head. Oh, so you can talk. The boy wanted to escape. He did not understand why, but Lussen's presence alone made that idea feel distant and dangerous. I wasn't gonna steal, I swear. I just thought. You looked rich, and I... The boy trailed off, shivering now that the adrenaline was fading. He wore a threadbare tunic and shoes that had more holes than leather. Are you an orphan? We're not orphans. My sister and I still have our dad. He promised he'd come back, so he's just... late. He always comes back. He always does. The boy shouted at first, but then he calmed down near the end. Such a huge reaction stunned Lussen, but he learned that the kid had a sister. Where's your sister? Why are you asking? The kid asked, but for a brief second, he looked at the alleyway he came from. Lussen pulled the kid over towards the alleyway. Seeing the direction they were heading, the boy struggled even more. Lussen saw a little girl the same age as his own little brother wearing the same ragged clothes as the boy, shivering on the ground. She looked at Lussen, then her big brother. Without a word, Lussen knelt down and wrapped his coat around the little girl's shoulders. She flinched at first, then clung to the warmth. "This should keep you warm for now," he muttered. Lussan scratched his head in annoyance as he looked at the current state of the siblings. He wasn't sure, but if these two truly had parents, then they weren't doing their job right. Even though he has been in this world for 12 years, and he knew that the level here was that of the Middle Ages, it was still annoying to see such a sight of neglect. TSK. It's not like the ones on Earth were all good either, but still. Let me ask again, where are your parents? Even though Lussan's voice was that of a child since he was 12, his presence made it seem like an adult had spoken, which rattled the boy, who had his head down. The little girl who was wrapped in Lussan's coat grabbed his big brother's hand. The boy looked at his little sister and then at Lussan. "My mom passed away due to an illness, but my dad is still alive. He's a soldier, the best soldier there is. He went out on the last monster wave, he just hasn't returned yet," the boy explained. Hearing that answer, Lussan frowned. The last monster wave was a year ago. All the soldiers who joined the defense had all been accounted for, so if he's saying his father hasn't returned, that means his father is dead. "So where are you living now? Don't tell me you are staying here in the streets." Lussan's tone became lighter but still serious. "We were waiting for our dad in the Temple of Varkan, where the other kids stay, but then the priest said something bad. He lied." What was the lie? The boy bit his lower lip as he did not want to answer, but when he saw Lussan look at him, the boy felt like he had no choice but to say it. "The priest said that our dad has joined Varkan's armies, and he will forever be honored and receive endless glory. The priest told us that he will try to find a good family for my sister and me." "Why would I need another family? I already have my sister and my dad." The boy once again became emotional. Despite not being that much taller than the boy, Lussan tightly wrapped the coat around the little girl and carried her. If it were a few months ago, this would have been an impossible feat for Lussan, but after training his body, it was easier than expected. "Thanks, Sir the Los." Lussan then turned around and looked at the stunned boy and spoke. "I see. Then, how about I meet with this priest and talk to him? The priest is obviously telling them such things out of kindness, but I wonder if it would turn out into some sort of cliché." Lussan thought to himself as he carried the little girl, heading to the Temple of Varkan. Chapter 14. The Temple of Varkan. The boy who named himself Rode and his little sister Anna were now guiding Lussan towards the Temple of Varkan. It didn't take too long to reach the Temple of Varkan, which was near one of the barracks. Each temple was situated in places related to its deities. Of course, the Temple of Varkan, the god of war and honor, would be placed near areas with a lot of soldiers. This wasn't the grand temple at the capital, but even here in Ironhold, the branch Temple of Varkan stood with quiet authority. Built with the same dark granite as the city's outer walls, it looked more like a disciplined outpost than a place of worship. Modest in size but solid in construction, its exterior bore no unnecessary ornamentation. Just a worn banner above the entrance, stitched with Varkan's sigil, a sword raised upright, framed by twin broken chains and a crown of iron thorns. In the end, I came to the Temple of Varkan, the god of war and honor, first. Is this some kind of divine intervention? Lussan, alongside the siblings, approached the temple. When they got near enough, Lussan could hear the familiar sound of some people training, and it wasn't from the barracks but from within the temple. Just as Lussan raised his hand to knock, hurried footsteps approached. He instinctively pulled the siblings back as the door burst open. A man and a woman appeared before them, both wearing the distinct vestments of Varkan's clergy. They were wearing long, formal vestments of deep crimson and ashen gray, trimmed with silver thread. The fabric was thick and ceremonial, draping in layered folds that gave them an imposing presence. Embroidered on the hems and sleeves were ancient symbols of Varkan: upright swords, broken shackles, and iron crowns woven with reverence and precision. Yet, unlike priests of gentler gods, these robes were split at the sides and reinforced at key points for movement. Beneath the flowing fabric, one could glimpse the gleam of plate armor, steel vambraces along their forearms, a fitted cuirass beneath the outer robe, and greaves beneath the hem. They were not just servants of faith but soldiers of it. The priest with dark brown hair and brown eyes was surprisingly as big as Sir the Los, but his muscles were more tamed. The priestess with blonde hair and blue eyes was a beautiful woman, and despite her garments, you could see that she had a great figure. Rode instinctively moved closer to Anna, who was still in Lussan's arms, wrapped snug in his coat. Both clerics visibly relaxed when they saw them. The priest stepped forward and gave a formal knight's salute. The priestess followed, her posture equally respectful despite her relief. Then the priest spoke, his voice calm but laced with concern. "Thank you for bringing them back. They've been gone for hours. We were beginning to fear the worst." Lussen put down Anna and saluted back with a knight's salute, his eyes studying the two adults. "They wandered pretty far. I found them near the market." The priestess knelt beside Rode and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Rode, we told you to stay within the temple grounds. Why did you take Anna with you? You scared us." Rode lowered his head, ashamed. I just wanted to look for our dad again. I thought maybe if I asked around the market, someone would have seen him." The priest looked pained but didn't scold. "Rode, we've talked about this. We've already asked the city garrison, the outer watch, and the war registry. There's been no word. If he were alive, he would have come back to you by now." "He's not dead," Rode snapped, but his voice cracked near the end. "He's the greatest soldier, and he promised he'd come back." Anna clung to her brother, her small fingers curled into the coat fabric. The priestess looked up at Lussen, her expression soft. "I'm sorry you had to see this. We've been caring for them ever since they arrived. But it's hard when they still believe he's out there." Lussen shrugged, but his voice was steady. "Honestly, I thought you were mistreating them or something different." The priest and priestess show stunned expressions as the priest replied, "We would never do that. Varkan teaches that honor includes protecting those left behind. Still, we worry every time they disappear." Rode's stubborn, just like his father. "I think instead of doing what you're doing, how about giving the kids hope? They told me that you've been looking for a family that would take them in, but how about pausing that for a few more months? I'm sure they just need a little more time to accept the truth." The priestess blinked, momentarily taken aback by Lussen's bluntness, but then her gaze softened. The priest nodded his head, stepped forward, and placed a fist over his chest. "My name is Gear," he said formally, "war priest of Varkan, and temporary guardian of these two brave souls. Once again, I thank you for bringing them back." Lussen nodded. "Lussen Thornheart." Gear gave a short bow of respect upon hearing the name, but Lussen could tell the man wasn't bowing to nobility, just recognizing a fellow warrior. "You may be right," Gear continued after a pause, his voice quieter now. "We've been trying to prepare them for reality, but perhaps what they need isn't closure. It's time. Even the most hardened have different ways of mourning fallen comrades. We'll hold off on any adoption arrangements for now," the priestess added gently, "and we'll make sure they know we're not giving up on their father. Not yet." Lussen gave a small nod. "Good. Let them hold on to hope a little longer. Who knows? Maybe a miracle might happen." Gear exhaled deeply and nodded with sincerity. "Wise words, young Thornheart. You have our gratitude. Now that's settled, can I go in? I wish to pray." Gear stepped aside immediately, his expression firm yet respectful. "Of course, all are welcome in Varkan's house, especially those who walk the warrior's path." The priestess rose from her place beside Rode, gave Anna's hair a reassuring pat, and gestured toward the doors. "Please come in. I'll look after the children." Lussen approached the siblings. "You guys be good and try not to sneak out again." Rode gave a grudging nod. Anna smiled softly, still wrapped in Lussen's coat. With that, Lussen turned and stepped into the Temple of Varkan. Inside, the scent of oiled steel, old incense, and faint sweat lingered in the air. Unlike most temples filled with candles and soft light, this place was dim and utilitarian. The walls were adorned not with murals or golden idols, but with polished weapons, swords, axes, and spears, each one meticulously maintained and displayed like relics. Banners of fated battles hung high along the stone columns, each telling tales of glory, sacrifice, and honor. Lussen stepped forward to the altar, a simple stone slab with various weapons and armor stuck into it. This was the first time Lussen got to enter a temple. He wasn't even able to this in the game. When you visit a temple in the game, it simply asks you if you wish to worship a certain deity, and it won't show the inside. A loading screen would appear instead. Lussen felt a little nervous about what he was about to do. Even though he had already tried preparing himself in his mind when it was actually happening, he was nervous. In this world, it was almost certain that there were deities, and what he was about to do might offend them. What's there to be afraid of? I already died once before. Lussen strengthened his resolve. Yeah, I just need to be sincere. Lussen stepped forward until he was directly in front of the altar. The light filtering in from high, narrow windows caught the edge of the weapons displayed, casting long, sharp shadows over the stone floor. The air was still. He could hear only the distant clang of training from deeper within the temple and the quiet beat of his own heart. So should I kneel in prayer like back on earth? No, this is God of War. Then there's only one way to do it. Lussen unsheathed his sword, held it in both hands, and knelt on one knee, its tip resting on the ground. He bowed his head in silence. Then, with a deep breath, he began to pray. Chapter 15. Final preparations before leaving. Lussen, who had his head bowed, did not know what to say, but as he steadied his breath, a thought surfaced. Maybe he could pray like the characters he admired in the games and anime he once loved. It was a silly idea, perhaps, but it gave him focus. Slowly, he exhaled, gathering his nerves. Then, with closed eyes, he spoke what he felt was the right thing to say. Varkin, God of War and Honor, I, Lussen Thornheart, present myself before you as a warrior. I ask you to please give me your blessing as I march out to my first battle. After he was done saying his prayer, Lussen waited, but there was no reaction. As he planned to stay still for a few more seconds before trying something, a loud notification sound started ringing in his head. Warning! 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 A sharp, stabbing headache struck him instantly, but Lussen didn't move. Somehow, his instincts screamed at him. If he broke posture now, something worse would happen. A higher being has looked upon you. The second Lussen heard that notification, a shiver crawled down his spine as he held his breath. Lussen did not know how long he had stayed in his praying position, but after some time, the intense presence he felt disappeared. As he was confused as to what happened, a transparent screen appeared before him, similar to his status window. Varkin, the God of War and Honor, seeker of endless battle, has heard your prayer. Young warrior, who has struggled, who holds steel and iron, Varkin has acknowledged you. Varkin has decided to bless you. Blessing. Ashen's vow duration, 30 days. Your body will recover slightly faster from wounds and fatigue. When facing death without retreat, physical abilities will increase for 1 minute. Lussen was surprised that the blessing he received was different from in-game, and it was only temporary. While he was thinking about what had just happened, he once again felt a powerful force in the room. This time, it wasn't cold and vast like an endless battlefield. It was warm. It felt very warm, like someone was embracing him. A silent recognition. A commanding voice then echoed in his ears. Young warrior, I will be watching your struggle. The presence he felt disappeared, and Lussen, who was holding his breath, finally exhaled. It felt like the tight string that was holding Lussen had snapped. He stumbled backward onto his butt, grasping for breath. Lussen started hyperventilating, but he had a smile on his face. So that was a god. I guess the protagonist truly is the chosen one, able to be blessed by any of the deities, and the blessing is permanent. Still, as a side character, I guess I did pretty well. After he calmed himself down, Lussen said goodbye to the children and to the priest and priestess. Lussen started walking around the city deep in thought. Damn, that was more stressful than I thought it would be. Should I continue to the next temple or stop now? Lussen shook his head, and a vicious-looking smile appeared on his face. What the F***ck am I even hesitating for? A true gamer would never hesitate to try and get free buffs. Also, as a Thornheart, I shouldn't back down from a challenge. Once he made his decision, Lussen went to the other temples. Out of the remaining 4, he gained a response from 2. The first one was Calderos, the god of the forge and flames. His temple was located near the blacksmith's forges and the carpenter's workshops. When he prayed to Calderos, he felt someone looking at him curiously. Calderos, the god of the forge and flames, has heard your prayer. You who created, who has stepped forward into the forge, Calderos has acknowledged you. Calderos has blessed you. Blessing. Flame-forged wrath, duration, 45 days. Your resistance to heat and fire is significantly increased. When you fight with resolve, all attacks will deal additional fire damage. Once per day, when fighting while injured, your next attack ignites with divine flame, doubling its damage and burning through most magical or physical defenses. Once he received his blessing, as with Varkin, Calderos also spoke, though only briefly. You who have forged the way forward, I curiously await your next steps. Unlike Varkan, who made him feel pressure and warmth, Calderos had a vibe of curiosity and excitement. The other deity that gave Lucen a blessing was the goddess of the night and death, Velmyra. Her temple was located near the cemeteries. Unlike Varkan's temple, where you could hear the sound of training, and Calderos' temple, where you heard the sound of the hammer falling, Velmyra's temple was silent. After he prayed to Velmyra, Lucen felt a chill down his spine. Velmyra, the goddess of the night and death, has heard your prayer. Young one, he who has seen the last night and remembers death's embrace, Velmyra has acknowledged you. Blessing. Veil of the silent moon duration. 35 days. When fighting in low light or darkness, your movement becomes quieter, and your attacks are less likely to be detected. Killing a target with a single blow under these conditions restores a small portion of mana and stamina. Once per day, when in critical condition, you gain a brief veil of shadows, making you untargetable for 2 seconds and dodging the next lethal strike. The same as the two other deities. Once he received the blessing, Lucen heard the sweet voice of the goddess. Child who has tasted the sweet embrace of the final light, may your shine be brighter this time. Her voice was like a mother whispering her hopes into a cradle, gentle, yet eternal. Lucen remained still for several seconds, the cold lingering in his bones. Yet, somewhere deep inside, her words left behind a strange warmth. After going to each temple in the city, Lucen headed back home. It had been a very impactful first trip in the city. I guess the deities in this world have some sort of omniscience, since it's obvious they know what I have been doing, and Velmyra even knows that I have already died once, and I have memories of my past life. Good thing I didn't lie when I prayed. That would have gone badly. A satisfied smile appeared on Lucen's face as, even without a coat, he felt excited and happy. Even though I didn't get a permanent buff like Alexander, the protagonist of the game, I got a lot more blessings. Overall, that was nice. Now I feel more confident in going outside the fortress next week. In the next few days before his departure, Lucen visited the blacksmiths and asked them to forge a hollow iron sphere about the size of a fist, with a small opening that could be sealed with a screw-in cap. This was something Lucen thought of by himself since he had seen several things like this in various games and anime he used to watch before. It was not part of the gun knowledge skill, it was his own knowledge. The blacksmiths asked what it was for, but Lucen simply said he would show them once it was done. It took the blacksmiths a day to create the item Lucen wanted, and when he returned, Robert was already there. I heard that you asked the blacksmiths to create something interesting. So what is this small sphere for? Robert showed Lucen the finished product. Lucen didn't answer. He poured in a careful amount of Robert's improved gunpowder, threaded a short length of oil-soaked twine through a small hole in the iron cap, then screwed it in tight. Come with me. I've got something interesting to show. Robert, the blacksmith, followed him to the weapon testing yard. Lucen held the bomb at arm's length, lit the oil-soaked twine with flint and steel, then hurled it in the distance. Everyone, back away a little. 3 seconds later, boom! The iron sphere exploded with a sharp, thunderous bang. Shrapnel scattered across the testing field, leaving a blackened mark on the dirt. The training dummies in the area had several holes in them. After several seconds of silence, Robert, with his usual crazed look, spoke. What was that? No, wait. Let me guess. The sphere was hollow, you filled it with black powder, and the burning twine ignited it. The metal casing couldn't contain the force, so it burst apart, launching iron fragments everywhere. He clapped his hands together, almost vibrating with excitement. So it isn't just an iron sphere, you turned the casing into the weapon. It's not aimed at one target. It's meant to hit everything in an area. Wonderful. This black powder you created seems to have so many more ways of destruction. Robert told Lucen his analysis of what he understood with great excitement. While Robert was getting more excited, the blacksmiths were still looking at what had happened in stunned silence. What they saw was something that didn't use mana or aura. It was simply an iron case thrown, and the effect was devastating. The things they were creating seemed like they would change the way they fought. They were woken up from their trance by Lucen's voice. Can you make me several more of these? The departure day came faster than expected. Still, he was confident. Lucen had already unlocked his buffs, crafted explosives, and mentally clicked, mission start.